Where will Illinois go going forward? Okay, you've got a guy in Chase Brown, who's probably NFL bound. You got a guy in Tommy DeVito, who's a senior transfer. They've got good young wide receivers. If I look at something that's really good for Illinois right now and the future for Illinois, I look at the wide receivers. I believe Isaiah Williams is a sophomore. Pat Bryant is a young player as well. Look, whoever comes in at quarterback next season for Illinois, the good thing for them is that they're going to have weapons to throw to. But there's a lot of guys on this Illinois team that are going to be playing at the next level. There's going to be a lot of guys to replace at Illinois. So that's the big question about the future, right? You got a program that kind of comes out of nowhere, and all of a sudden it appears that they're going to put together this good season and another one, and you got a coach that's been there and done that in the Big Ten Conference, but next season is really going to determine where this team goes. I've seen so many teams over the course of college football, over the course of the Big Ten Conference, they jump up and have a really good season. I mean, Northwestern, staying in the state of Illinois, is a great example, right? Northwestern every other year, right? 9 wins here, 4 wins here, 10 wins here, 3 wins here. Consistency. It's really hard to stay consistent in the Big Ten Conference if you're not Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State, if you're not in those cluster of teams. And now with USC and UCLA, specifically USC coming into the conference, we could see one big division instead of 2 separate divisions in 2024. That's going to make it even harder for Bret Bielema to sustain success at Illinois. I believe that this is an Illinois team. Look, I'm not saying they're going to drop back down to 4 and 3 wins and Bret Bielema is going to get fired in a couple of years. I am definitely not saying that. What I am saying is, hey, Illinois, you might win 9 games this year. Okay, and that's great. With a bowl game, you might win 10 games. But I don't think Illinois, if history has taught me anything, it's that Illinois is not going to be a 9 and 10 win team every season. I'm not saying they aren't going to be, but if history has taught me anything, you're going to see seasons like this where these teams pop up and then they pop down. They pop up and then they pop down. The transfer portal is a big part of that. I mean, where would Illinois be without Tommy DeVito at quarterback? Now, maybe they would have found another quarterback, and maybe they were destined to find a quarterback in the transfer portal, but that's a great question. But then you kind of peel back the layers on the onion just a little bit and say, well, if they got Tommy DeVito in the transfer portal, why can't they bring in another transfer if recruiting hasn't paid off at the quarterback position? I will say Bret Bielema has the pedigree to make Illinois a consistent player. But it is going to get much more difficult when the Big Ten likely scraps divisions, and now you got to compete with Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Michigan State, USC to get to the Big Ten championship instead of competing with Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, Northwestern, Purdue, those kinds of teams. It's going to get more difficult. I think consistently after this season, kind of looking at where Illinois is in some 24/7 sports recruiting rankings, I could see Illinois, being a 6 to 8 win team every season. That's kind of where I see the Illini going forward. They're going to pop up, and then they might pop down to a 6-win team, to a 7-win team. And then, of course, the whole other question, right, we're peeling back the layer just a little bit more, is what happens to Bret Bielema? What happens to Bret Bielema if he wins 9 games this year? Okay, and maybe he doesn't take the Nebraska job this year, or he doesn't take this job or that job. But then he drops back down to 6 wins, 7 wins, and 8 wins, and he doesn't get back to that 9 or 10 win level. But other schools can see, we know, especially in the Big Ten Conference, we know this guy can coach. What happens then? Did I reach my ceiling as head coach because Chase Brown? Legitimate question. Are you going to get a running back like Chase Brown ever again in Champaign, Illinois? I'm not saying they can't do it. Look, I'm not trying to bring down the Illinois program. I'm more propping up Chase Brown than I'm bringing down Illinois. Chase Brown is a fantastic running back. Like, you could look at every program almost in the Big Ten, and you'd be lucky to get a guy like Chase Brown. Okay? When are you going to get a guy like Chase again? We've seen Nebraska, Michigan, especially Michigan State. Some years, the transfer portal, you get hits. Some years, you get misses. It looks like they've hit on Tommy DeVito and how he's meshed and how he's fit into their system. But sometimes there's misses. So not every year things are going to gel together. Look at Nebraska. You go out and you get a bunch of guys, but they just didn't gel together, and they didn't guys to shore up parts of their interior and in the trenches for them where they really needed it. So going forward for Illinois, I think there's a lot of questions. Look, I'm sure the orange and blue, the Orange Crush, everybody, ILLI, everybody's excited about what is happening with Illinois football. But now you got expectations. Now instead of a 6-win season, you're happy at Illinois getting to a bowl game. Now you want 8 wins. Now you want 9 wins. Everything, the level of competition with these California schools coming in, it's going to continue to raise. And if we don't have divisions anymore, it's not nearly going to be as easy to get to the Big Ten championship game for those Western schools. Not just Illinois, even a team like a Wisconsin. Like if you look at the Badgers right now, a team that consistently up until this season was really 8 to 10 wins every single year. You could count on that in Madison, Wisconsin. But now we gotta compete with Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State, USC. We gotta compete with those schools to get to Indianapolis. Totally different ball game. Totally different story.